Hello friends, welcome to Blessend Crochet. Today I teach you how to knit a beautiful scarf. I hope you like it, so let's get started. For this project I will use this type of material. Is number 4. They're at home. You can use any material you have. Close to home. And most importantly, that fits your nurse's needs. I'm going to use a 5mm hook. The amount I will need for this project will be 380 g. And we are going to have one 2m long scarf. Because it is for a tall mirror. 2m I will leave it, and it is 20 centimeters wide. Then they are going to be, in this case, 20 centimeters wide by 2 long 380 g. Synthetic wool. 5mm hook. And let's start. I'm not going to put fringe on it. So we are going to save a little bit of wool. And I'm going to start. I secure my first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 chain stitch. I will pass this chain stitch without knitting, and on the upside down side. I start knitting single stitch. Next single stitch. Next single stitch, and this to keep the edge. As well as chain stitch. I continue. Single stitch. Next. Single stitch. And in total I have 29 single stitches left. I am going to complete my round. Once this first round is over, let's knit the second round. I'm going to knit him a chain stitch. Turn. And I'm going to knit this one. This chain stitch. I'm going to go weaving to C. Stitch to see the first stitch, we will take it complete. Seems complete to you. First stitch and last stitch. There it is. Now I am going to start weaving here. Half of the chain stitch. Single stitch, half of the chain stitch. Single stitch and single stitch. Thus taking only half of the chain stitch. And also this other half. Without knitting, look here, I take half of the chain stitch. Single stitch. Half of the chain stitch. Single stitch. It is very easy to take it. There it is. Step to the next. To the following. And followed by. It's okay. We will then continue with the process. There is single stitch. And single stitch and single stitch. I will complete my round. I have already arrived at this, which is the last stitch and the last stitch. I'm going to take it like this. Complete and you. Single stitch. A chain stitch. I'm going to start weaving the process part now. These are like base turns. Now at the first stitch, you single stitch. At the following stitch, instead of taking it here, I'm going to take this piece of wool that has and knit a double crochet. This stitch I have here I am going to pass it on without knitting. I'm going to take this one, I take half the chain stitch. To see here this one I have here, I only pass one. And there teju single stitch. Yes, taking alone half of the chain stitch. Now I will pass on this stitch. This one I have down here without knitting. And at the following stitch, which is the equivalent at this stitch to this. Here I am going to knit a double crochet. Double crochet. I'm going to pass this stitch without knitting. This one is already taken. Look at this one I pass without knitting. And at the following stitch. There I leave the single stitch, yes. Then, why don't we weave this stitch that is here? Because this is the equivalent of this. To this double crochet. Now I move on to the next stitch, which is this. But I take the bottom part. This and teju double crochet. If you look at this is the single stitch. And the wool from down here was not drunk. Then I'm going to move on to the next stitch, which is this one. Look here, you can see. There I passed. This stitch is not woven, this one is already taken. This step without weaving and in the one that follows. Stitch under step. And in which it follows. I take the strand half of the chain stitch and knit double crochet. And here in this space that follows. Single stitch we pass the stitch without knitting. I pass the stitch below and at the stitch next. Double crochet. And here. I take the stitch. Step and in the one that follows. So. Double crochet. By the way, the next stitch, look at this one, I am not going to knit it. And in which it follows. This is the key not to knit this stitch. Because, is the equivalent of this stitch I just. Single stitch. Step at the bottom and at the top edge. Sorry, on the one above, and in the one below double crochet. Single stitch half of the chain stitch. Double crochet. Single stitch half of the chain stitch. Double crochet. Single stitch. Double crochet. Single stitch. Double crochet step. Single stitch step. Down here I pass double crochet. Single stitch step. Double crochet step. Nice, easy. Easy. Here we have 2 stitches. Look why I have already taken this one. I take this stitch down here. Double crochet. And the one following. Remember that we are going to go through this one without knitting. And the ladder must be taken in full. To weave the base stitch, yes. Then if you want to knit him. For example, make it smaller. You are going to start knitting with even numbers, i.e. 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, blah 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 even. Ha! Ha! Blah 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 truth. Sorry, this one, and if you want it smaller. You will remove 2 stitches. And when you start doing the single stitches, how are you going to pass a chain stitch? You are going to reduce it by 1 stitch, i.e. in the end you must have odd numbers left. Yes, multiple of 2. But you have to find the chain stitch odd. And they become pairs to make you look odd on the turn is okay. Well then, if for example you tell me. And if they were single stitches. Counting only the single stitches. I am 29 if you would like to do. A little wider would be 31. And if you wanted to do less it would be 27. And so backwards or forwards you think okay. Well, I have already finished this first round. A spinning chain stitch. First chain stitch must be with a single stitch. And we will repeat. In this case our project or our scarf. Here I take the stitch that follows, look down, there is no stitch. That's the first one. Beginning and double crochet you. And then I pass this stitch without knitting and in which it follows. Single stitch. Step stitch without knitting and in which it follows stitch double crochet. Step stitch without knitting and in which it follows. Single stitch, always taking half of the chain stitch. I move on to the next stitch. I take the bottom strand. But look here, I am passing this one, right? Okay. Step stitch without knitting and in which it follows. Single stitch, I move on to the next stitch. And at the bottom, I take half of the chain stitch, stitch double crochet. I pass the stitch. Next, single stitch here, step, and where it follows double crochet. And this must also be done to complete our entire turn. If they are noticed, it is the same process. All laps are going to be single stitch. Let's see here, I take this one off. This hair I had. So and so. Good. The entire lap must be completed. And it is very easy. Because we are going to be guided. Both from the stitches below. For example here. Because here you can already see where it is. What is the stitch of this? If you notice, we are passing this one down here. We only put straight our project and there we see the stitch that follows. Now here it is already covering this stitch. I move on to this one. I leave a single stitch and here we are leaving this stitch free. Double crochet. Single stitch. And remember that only half of the chain stitch. Step here at the bottom and in the next part. Double crochet. In which the single stitch follows. Double crochet. I'm passing by here, look. And here I pass. This is already our last stitch I will pass on, and the last one to take will be complete. The complete chain stitch. And Teju stitch payment. And there it is. Look again and our stitch will be sharp. Once again a spinning chain stitch. Single stitch and I move on to this stitch that continues now. Let's weave where the double crochets are. For example, this is a double crochet and here I leave it. A double crochet. In which it follows. Single stitch equal taking half of the chain stitch. I pass this one to this stitch that I have here. I take the double crochet. In which the single stitch follows. Next half of the chain stitch stitches taken double crochet. Next single stitch. Next double crochet. So here we are going to have a clearer guide. Why? Because they will keep the stitch on stitch. Stitch on stitch, yes. Then we are going to have a little bit more. Easier than it was already true. They're at home how they liked it the most. Now that you have the stitch guide. Or before the guide. Leave me your comment here, I pass. Step. And I would like to meet who is with me today. Leave me your comment, my friend. And tell me from which country you write to me. Here I make a single stitch. a double crochet, a single stitch to C, and a double crochet, a single stitch, and a double crochet. Complete my return. Lo, I have two stitches left again. Here double crochet. And I pass the stitch without knitting, and at the last stitch I take it in full. And teju stitch under a chain stitch. Tour. Single stitch. It happened to me here I have the first double crochet. And you have to weave it here I take it. And we repeat the process. Single stitch. Double crochet on the relief stitch that is being seen, in which the single stitch follows, but remember that it will always go overboard. The stitch without knitting, which is the equivalent of the double crochet I finish, to drink here at the bottom. And ready now, yes, friends. From now on this stitch is. Yes, remember that you are going to go through a stitch without knitting at every double crochet. For example, like this one I'm going to knit. That I have to go through here without weaving. And at the next stitch single stitch. There it is, nice. Easy and affordable. I am going to outperform friends on this occasion until I get 2M. Yes, at home, what is the traditional? We left the scarf on the 1.70-year-old boy. Yes, 1M with 70 centimeters is the traditional way. For children can leave it at 60. But for example for people who measure of 1 from 175 and up I recommend leaving 2M. There at home. You decide because there are Asians who like them. The shortest scarves. Yes, then on this occasion as is a special order. I had it made in 2M. Good friends. I am in advantage. Those 2M and I'll see you in a little while. Until now. I am very pleased that you have stayed until this part of the video. I thank you infinitely for your support, helping us to share on social networks. I need a like. Leave me your comment as well what things you would like to see. Remember you are on my all crochet channel. I am Mari Rolón and I am very pleased with it. To be with me today. Advantage and return. Once you have the total, you need your scarf. In my case, she was quite a friend. You already know how long it measures. I told you about them at the beginning of the video. But we are going to finish. To conclude we are going to do the following: a chain stitch, twist, and we will be weaving single stitch. Here. In this first stitch we weave the complete single stitch. Yes, in the one that follows. We are going to take it in this case, look. For example this. We are going to take it as if we were going to make the double crochet, but just taking the bow. And the next one we will take in full. Single stitch and then where the bow is. Single stitch and the one that follows, remember that it is. In this case complete, yes. And so we are going to weave this turn. Where the double crochet went. We take half and weave in the one that follows complete. Half and full. Half and single stitch, taking it completely. I will complete my entire tour. Here to finish. We make the single stitch. And let's make him a chain stitch. And another single stitch lap. Taking the whole stitch we will be weaving the single stitch and single stitch to completion. Our entire turn. And there at home tell me about it, you left him in this case bangs. I have already shown you in previous videos how to place them. I will leave you a link anyway. Of another scarf with fringe. In case someone likes to place them. In my case I'm going to leave it like this without the bangs. And there it is at home. If someone wants to do it. Here is a link to another scarf with fringe. So that you can place them. And this is how I will complete this project. I hope you liked it a lot, my friend. If you liked it, support me by sharing on social networks. With your relatives. With your friends. In your Facebook groups. And we'll see you in a future video, do you think? And I thank you very much that you have accompanied me today. Remember, if you are new to this channel, I invite you to subscribe. Activate the notification bell that appears here at the bottom, is totally free. Click also below where it says subscribe for YouTube to notify you every time I have a video to share with you. I upload videos every day, so it looks amazing to subscribe so that every day you can accompany me in a new project. I also want to thank all my friends who are members of the channel. 1000 thanks friends for your support. And if you would like to be a member of the channel and get new benefits, click here below where it says join. I say goodbye. See you in the next video. I'm Mari Rolone and you are on my channel. I want to show you friends up to this stitch. For this is the length of the scarf total. Obviously, as I told you, is a scarf for. This is what it looks like. I loved the stitch. Leave me your comment what you thought. With this I say goodbye, as usual. I really hope you liked it. If you liked it, support me by sharing on social networks. There with your relatives. With your friends. Let's see how it looks with another turn. With your relatives. With your friends. In your Facebook groups. And see you in an upcoming video and many. But thank you very much for joining me today. As always, nice, easy. Here in my channel of Everything in Crochet with Mari Rolone.